Hey, this is Chad with Drawn and Cornered. It is November 16th, 2021, and here's your news that you're going to need for the day. Yesterday, Joe Biden had a 3.5-hour Zoom call with President Xi from China, and apparently not a lot was figured out. There's really kind of a standstill. There's not a lot earned either way. One of the important points is that Biden apparently did not bring up COVID and its origins with the president of China, which has Wuhan and the lab, and I guess potentially even the bat that it came from. I don't know. Wasn't discussed. Killed millions and millions of people around the world. Not discussed. Not something that was brought up. Still killing people around the world. Not brought up. What was brought up, however, by President Xi was the discussions about Taiwan and how American influence, American support, American saber rattling, coalition building around freedom of Taiwan was playing with fire. And specifically, the pillar for this new administration, Joe Biden's new administration strategy for challenging China by teaming up with neighbors around the area would inevitably bring disaster to the world. That sounds pretty dark. Given that we have seen China launching supersonic missiles capable of carrying nuclear warheads that run around the world and will not be intercepted by our Star Wars program or our missile defense systems, that's pretty big talk. And I'm guessing, I don't know, but I'm guessing Joe Biden doesn't have a lot of answers for it. And the question will become at some point, how important is our leadership and power around the world? Are we going to become more isolationist and just say, hey, Taiwan, it's up to you. You're freedom loving, but we don't care anymore. Cuba, we don't care. Any other country around the world that has hopes of America stepping in and assisting them in becoming more westernized or more free, we're not going to do anything about. Or are we willing to step in and take the slings and arrows that come with being the first guy through the door, so to speak? I don't know where we stand on that. Joe Biden seemingly is willing to cede a great deal of American influence and American power around the world. See Afghanistan, see Russian relations, see Chinese relations. We'll see where this pans out. But that call yesterday seemed to have a lot going that direction. Apparently they talked about climate as well. China is not going to be a part of any of this climate movement. China needs to be able to burn coal, needs to be able to be a high producer of carbon emissions in order to remain competitive and to continue to expand their capabilities worldwide. They are not going to get away from that. They might be moving towards solar, they might be moving towards wind at some point to try and adjust slightly, but they're also not going to cut back on the steamroller of production that they have currently going. If they can find ways to supplement that or switch over, fine. They are certainly not going to curtail it until those things come online. And that's going to be years, decades until that tech catches up to what you can do with coal and fossil fuels. So it's not going to happen. If Joe Biden has any illusions otherwise, he's wrong. It's just not going to happen. China is not going to relent in grabbing more and more power. But I digress. In other news for the day, probably the least surprising news that you may hear today, apparently the Congressional Budget Office said on Monday that the IRS proposal to go after tax evaders, and that Joe Biden is specifically using as a payment for his several trillion or a couple trillion dollar Build Back Better bill, is wildly inaccurate. It's just not going to work. The Congressional Budget Office assumed that maybe they would be able to capture about $120 billion over the decade, which is far less than the $400 billion that the administration was relying on, and they said perhaps even more. Congressional Budget Office is like, it's not out there. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get that money. So already we're seeing cracks in the idea that this is going to cost nothing and it's essentially free to the American people because they've got it paid for with all sorts of tricks and gimmicks and smoke and mirrors in the background. Even those smoke and mirrors are inaccurate and aren't going to help them. And the Congressional Budget Office said it. White House began coming forward saying, well, we think they're wrong, which again is just patently absurd. The Congressional Budget Office has no reason to lie about this, has no reason to be inaccurate about it. The White House also has plenty of incentive to try and disprove them, but it is what it is. We will see if this Build Back Better Act actually moves forward. Apparently, Nancy Pelosi has told House members that if they don't vote for it and get this bill passed in the next couple of weeks, they will be working over the Thanksgiving holiday. I'm curious how many soft politicians are out there that wouldn't have voted for it because their turkey dinner is on the line. They now will vote for it. If you have that sort of politician in your district, then I guess you kind of deserve what you get, because I would deliver turkey to my congressman to ensure that he didn't vote for this bill. So again, we'll see. A lot of things are going to be moving in the future, and we will see what ways they try and sell this. Joe Biden is actually hitting the trail all across the states to try and sell the benefits of the infrastructure bill that he just signed yesterday. I think it's rather interesting that his big push is to spend taxpayer money to convince taxpayers that the massive amount of money he's spending of taxpayer dollars is actually good for them. That seems strange. You pay me to tell you how good it is to continue to pay me. Seems ludicrous, but this is modern politics. We are moving on to the last story of today. This is my prognostication day of what's going to happen in the Rittenhouse trial. Now, I didn't have the Drawn and Cornered channel moving nearly as well back when the George Floyd verdict came out for Derek Chauvin. I was wildly wrong. So I will put that on the table right now. I got that completely wrong. I thought that he was probably going to get off on most of those counts, not actually be guilty on all of them. So could not have been more wrong. But I am going to make a wager on this one as well. Gentleman's wager, because you can't bet, I'm sure, on YouTube or otherwise. I think Kyle Rittenhouse gets off completely. There's a part of me that thinks that they've got to charge him with something just to say that they got him on something. But with the judge eliminating the weapons charge, which was the easiest one, seemingly, for the prosecution to get, with him eliminating that one, bringing on the provocation explanation to the jury, opening up a couple of smaller, lesser charges, it all sort of hinges on whether or not you believe at any point during that night Kyle Rittenhouse provoked the attacks that came to him. The prosecution didn't even push the idea that these weren't oncoming attacks. It talked a little bit about whether or not Gage was trying to stop the fight or wrest the gun away versus using his gun. But ultimately, all of these people came to Kyle Rittenhouse. He did not approach any of them. Prosecution didn't try to change that. So it just becomes whether or not they were provoked into that fight. And I think that all hinges on whether or not you consider a gun, period, just holding a gun, to be a provocation of violence, something that needs to be dealt with. And I don't know that that is a case that can be made. Talking about bringing a gun to a fist fight, that is the best fight to have. You want to have a gun at a fist fight so that you can come out on top. You don't want to be going fist to fist. That's a great way to eventually lose. The argument doesn't make sense. I am going to go with not guilty, all counts. I believe there's 7 counts, 14 pages of instructions. Not guilty, all the way across the board. I think this will be a verdict that we get today. Tomorrow I'll report on whether or not I got this right or wrong. I am prepared to eat crow if I got it wrong, and to take a victory lap and a huge ego boost if I get it right. Thank you very much for watching. This is Chad with Drawn and Cornered. If you like this sort of thing with a little bit of news, a little bit of analysis, just a morsel for your day so you have everything you need before moving on, definitely subscribe to the channel down below. Hit that bell so you get notifications every time I release a video, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We will see you over the weekends if anything major happens. Otherwise, thank you again for watching. This is Chad with Drawn and Cornered, and I will see you again tomorrow.